definitely they will be given the opportunity to make their contribution. But to be arrogant and to go about it the wrong way, you are not going to succeed. You must humble yourself and, to the will of the people, and then you are going to get into office.
Good day and welcome to another edition of On Drive on the Caribbean. Yes, the Caribbean Sports Entertainment Management Group, CESMG. And my special guest today is the president of the Trinidad and Tobago Cricket Board, a comrade of mine, a good friend of mine, somebody that I've known in the cricket circles for a very, very long time, Mr. Azim Bassarath. Mr. Bassarath is one of the persons who have pioneered his entire life, not only cricket, but other aspects in Trinidad and Tobago. On Drive is a program blasted around the region, around the world. It's a podcast where we bring to you consistency, information, stability, respect, and most of all, a true passion to highlight the untold stories of men and women around the region. And it is very important that we speak to one of our unsung heroes in sports, because too many times our sports administrators really don't get the credit, really don't get the praise, because we who are part of the media are lazy in highlighting the success stories. On Drive wants to be able to make sure that we change that. Good morning, Mr. President, and welcome to On Drive, a podcast designed to be able to facilitate the hard work that people like you have continued to give to cricket, not only in the West Indies, but the entire world. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Springer, and good morning to all your viewers. It's always a pleasure speaking with you, and it is my pleasure this morning to join you on this podcast. And I will try to answer your questions as best as possible and as most humble as possible.
Now, the name Azim Bassarath, Trinidad and Tobago, I know you maybe might not have played at the top level for Trinidad and Tobago, but you would have been involved in some aspect of sports. Give me a little overview of Azim Bassarath's sporting career before we get into the other aspects of all of the brilliant work that you have done for Trinidad and Tobago.
Well, Azim Bassarath, he was born down in the deep countryside of Trinidad, way down in Moruga. It is the community in which Trinidad, they say that Trinidad and Tobago was discovered when Christopher Columbus discovered Trinidad and Tobago in 1492. So I come from that community. It is a countryside. It is I live about 10 miles from the shoreline, and I was born next to a recreation ground, the St. Mary's Recreation Ground in Moruga, on Saturdays and Sundays, and of course during the week in those days, the ground used to be filled with people. If they are not playing cricket, they will be playing football. If they are not playing football, they will be exercising. We had a boxer also coming from our community who would have been represented Trinidad and Tobago. So the sport has been my entire life. In the early days, growing up next to the recreation ground, and the cricket was being played on a weekend, on Saturdays and Sundays, as I said before, balls used to be falling on our roofs. At one time, one of our windows was knocked out by a six hit by one of the villagers. Lots of people used to visit the grounds those days. And I grew up, as I said before, loving sports. I was very much involved in sports. I played for my club in my community. I started off as an opening batsman. I used to bowl off spin. I bowled medium pace. And that was at the lower level of cricket in Trinidad. And we were affiliated, the club was affiliated with the Southeast Zone of the Trinidad and Tobago Cricket Board. And when I took over the running of the club in 1988, it was a brand new sort of administration that took place in the community, in that we started to have and to recognize the cricketers who would have played cricket during the season by awarding them prizes and so on, and having dinner with all the cricketers and people from the community. Our very first presentation function in Moruga, we had Mr. Alvin Cornell, a former national cricketer and footballer who would have journeyed from Port of Spain to Moruga to deliver the FITE address. And that created a buzz in the community in which the entire community started aligning themselves with the club. So we were very much involved in the zone. And then when the zonal people saw what I had done for that small club in Moruga, I was elevated to the position of chairman of the zone in 1997. And in 1999, I became a member of the executive of the Trinidad and Tobago Cricket Board. And from then till now, I have served without any break as an executive member. I became second vice president in 2005. I became first vice president in 2007. And in 2009, I became president of the cricket board. Until now, I am serving as president. And I will go on to serve until 2025 when this term finishes.
Now, congratulations to your journey. And what about your other brothers and sisters? Were they too also involved in sports in the community?
Okay. But I have 4 other brothers. All of them would have been involved in sport. My 4 brothers, they're not into the administration of the game, but they would have played. My young brother, I can tell you that, we were playing a game in the zone in Rio Claro, and we batted first, and I think we made something like 208, and he made 59 not out. So when the other team went into bat, they were batting a 47 without loss. And in the over, one of the overs that he bowled, the first 4 balls, he had 4 wickets. And the 5th ball, a catch was dropped in the gully. And the 6th ball, he clean bowled the guy. Now, the night before, Mr. Springer, I dreamt that he got 6 wickets in the match. But the dream was that, he would have gotten 6 wickets in the over. And he ended up with 8 wickets in the innings. So, it was something to witness. It was really, and none of the outs, none of the wicket that he got in the over was LBW. All was either clean bowl or caught at full slip.
Wow, wow, wow. Let's talk about Azim. What has changed with cricket in your time coming up to now? What is the difference? You were talking about the crowds that came out into the communities, and I know we can discuss and people will tell you about the economic situation and life has changed and everything has got expensive, but what in your little analysis has changed?
People in those days, from what we have done research and what we have seen and observed, is that people in those days, I'm talking about 70s, 80s, and 90s, in Trinidad and Tobago, there was no internet, there was no cable TV. So on the Saturday and Sunday, the parents and the children would have wanted to take their kids somewhere. And the only place that they would have gone is that at the recreation ground, because the recreation ground, when there is cricket Saturday and Sunday, as I said before, used to be filled with people. We used to have people from the community come in and selling sugar cake, ice cream, snow cone, Indian delicacies. So on any given weekend, it was also beneficial to the entrepreneurs in the community. And they would have etched a living out of those things. You having 300 and 400 people at the venue, at the ground on those days. And also in those days, people would have walked to the ground. There were hardly anybody with a vehicle who would have drive to the ground and parked up and so on. Most of the people would have walked to the ground. And then it would have had this community involvement. Everybody will know everybody and everybody will be attached to the club and the community. So, those days compared to now everybody is very busy. Everybody is busy on the internet. Every little child you see now is on a phone and he's on TikTok or YouTube or something, doing something. Some other kids now will be at home looking at TV. Now there is smart TV. You can go on the TV and play games. you're getting your YouTube on TV too. So the children will not, these days now we find it very difficult for the kids to come outside and play. They prefer to remain inside on their phone, on their laptops, on the iPads and so on, and TV, and looking at TV. But in our days, since there were none of those things, we were very much involved in the outdoor activities.
When your body is challenged, it burns fuel and energy. Respond to every challenge with Altitude Sports Drink. It replenishes, restores, and prepares you for the next level. Altitude is uniquely formulated with an electrolyte blend and magnesium available in fruit punch, blue frost, and grape. Altitude. Raise your game.
Dem Sports is an innovative sports equipment manufacturer specialising in the production of high-quality sports nets and cages for clubs, universities and schools. The development of a Dem Sports concertina cage, either as a single or double-width sports net, has helped schools in inner-city areas where space is a premium to include sports such as cricket and tennis in the curriculum in a safe and enjoyable way.
The nets were developed really for when we had schools with a problem with space, so it could be used in limited areas. It folds back to the wall to a minimum of 550 millimetres and pulls out to 8 metres just over.
This sort of equipment is exactly the solution that many head teachers will look to use. It is space saving, it is easy to operate, it is relatively low cost, and again the impact of having provision within the school grounds is a real plus point.
Dem Sports are the world leaders in sports nets for schools. They have a range of net sizes to suit all spaces and can custom build whatever you require. For more information on how we can help you transform your play space at school safely, quickly and affordably, contact Dem Sports for details.
Folks, if you're wondering what's happening on OnDrive or podcast platform, we're speaking to the president of the Trinidad and Tobago Cricket Board, Mr. Azim Bassarath, and we want to be able to take some time out to salute our sponsors, Altitude, agents Andrew Wholesale in Antigua and Barbuda, iMobile, Vision Care Antigua and Barbuda, and Dem Sports Limited, some folks out of England. We're talking about the cages. Back to you, Mr. President, and trending. Explain to me the structure of the Trinidad and Tobago Cricket Board. And I know that you are the president, this is your fifth term, and that has to be a major achievement. You're turning out to be one of the top administrators here. But what keeps Mr. Bassarath going? Tell me, what drives you?
The structure, first let me deal with the structure of the board. The structure of the board is divided into 7 zones. And there are 5 affiliates to the board. The zones are Southeast Zone, South Zone, Southwest Zone, Central Zone, North, Northeast, and East Zone. Those are the different parts of Trinidad. And we have 5 affiliates, an affiliate with the Tobago Cricket Association is an affiliate. We have the Trinidad and Tobago Women's Association. We have the secondary schools, the primary school, and of course, the Umpires Council. They are affiliated to the Trinidad and Tobago Cricket Board. Now, what drives me is that when I became president, and even since I became chairman of the Southeast Zone, people will have encouraged me with what the vision that I had, where we wanted to take cricket in the Southeast Zone. And, success came immediately when I became chairman of the zone. With the changes that was immediately implemented. Southeast Zone had never won a cricket tournament, any cricket tournament under the auspices of the Trinidad and Tobago Cricket Board. And the board was formed since in 1980. So when I became chairman in 1997, in 1998, the very first tournament that was played among the zones, Southeast won it. So that was a tremendous achievement indeed, in such a short space of time after I became chairman. And the encouragement that I get, the appreciation I get from people in the community, people across Trinidad and Tobago and the different affiliates and zonal council, that drives me. When you see a youngster, Mr. Springer, going onto the field to play, when he comes back out and he do well, when you see the joy on his face and his parents' face, you want to see that translate across Trinidad and Tobago, and of course, across the Caribbean. There is no better feeling than to see a young child happy and excelling in his field. So that is what drives me. And of course, to see the results of our national senior team, of course, the West Indies team having in 2012 and 2016 winning the ICC T20 World Cup. That was it was pretty early stages yet in my administration as president of the board, and the success of Red Force in T20 cricket and the limited overs game. Trinidad and Tobago have always suffered in the longer version of the game, but the shorter format of the games, we always do well. And if you are seeing success at that level, it will motivate you to even go further and do much more.
Now, your administration or you personally have been attacked, and with social media now evolving, it is even more prevalent in terms of what's happening, but you've been able to stave off all of the attacks, all of your critics. In fact, your mantra is that you want to bring everybody on board. I mean, you whether it was Ramna Ryan, whoever, you didn't matter, because you were serving the interests of cricket. Have you been able to achieve that, Azim?
Well, first of all, you have to ignore some of the negatives that you will see outside there. You are not going to get everybody liking you. Nelson Mandela, Mahatma Gandhi, great presidents of the United States, prime ministers across the world, people who would have sacrificed their life for their country. In some areas, people still didn't like them. So I don't expect everyone, as a matter of fact, to like me and to like what I am doing. So it is difficult to please everyone, and you cannot please everyone. I have always said that my detractors, those people who would have opposed me and put out all sorts of things on social media, there are some of them who definitely have a contribution to make to Trinidad and Tobago and West Indies cricket. I continue to say that. And definitely, if they operate how they are supposed to operate with respectability and humility, definitely they will be given the opportunity to make their contribution. But to be arrogant and to go about it the wrong way, you are not going to succeed. You must humble yourself and to the will of the people, and then you are going to get into office. So long as you show some sort of arrogance, people are not going to support you and they are not going to wish you well. You must be able to be as humble as possible, to be as accommodating as possible, to ensure that you get the support of the people to make your contribution. And if you don't do that, you are not going to give them the opportunity. But I am quite sure that, those people, some of them definitely have, and I want to repeat, have a contribution to make to cricket in the Caribbean. And I hope that one day, their attitude will change, and all of us are going to come on board to continue making that contribution, and so that West Indies cricket, not only Trinidad and Tobago's cricket, but West Indies cricket can go back where all of us want to see it.
Now, Trinidad and Tobago, number of primary schools, number of high schools. What's the collaboration like between the Ministry of Sports and your cricket federation in terms of school cricket? Because I see a lot of cricket being played in Trinidad and Tobago, especially in the zonal area. Well, how do your coaches manage? And I know they won't be able to see all the games, but how is that worked out?
But what happened is that, as I said it before, the primary schools cricket league and the secondary schools cricket league both are affiliated to the board. So they they operate independently, and they operate under the Ministry of Education. And there is a collaboration with the Ministry of Education and the Ministry of Sport in terms of getting the kids out to play. The school teams will be selected from among the school children. They will have their PE teachers and coaches attached to the school. At the zonal level, what we have is different communities. The zone consists of different communities, and the different communities will have clubs. Cricket clubs will come from the community, and they are going to send children who the clubs feel, you know, can make the different age group teams. And then the coaches in the zone, there are several coaches in the different zones, and they are going to meet with their selectors and so on, and have screening and coaching sessions, and that is how the different teams are selected. And I must add that, you know, that is the format and that is the way that all the stars who are playing in West Indies cricket today, that is how they came through. They came through the zonal system, and the secondary school and the primary schools and the zonal system to go on to represent Trinidad and Tobago. Some of them were household name in Trinidad since under 15. The Dinesh Ramdin, Lendell Simmons, Rafi Rampal. You'll recall that in the year 2000, they went to England to play in the Coscotta under 15 World Tournament in which West Indies won. Trinidad and Tobago had 6 or 7 players on that team. So you know, the structure is there. It's very simple to work, and maybe that is the reason why that we have had so much success in Trinidad and Tobago in terms of players going on to represent Trinidad and Tobago and the West Indies.
I know you can't give me an accurate figure, but how many primary schools and how many high schools we're talking about? So just that folks around the world can understand that school cricket is big in Trinidad and Tobago.
Yeah, there are 430 primary schools in Trinidad and 35 or 36 secondary schools. But all the schools do not play cricket. I think it's about 300 primary schools will play cricket, and about 100 of the secondary schools will play cricket.
That's massive. That's massive. And I think Trinidad and Tobago, Azim, is leading the way when it comes in terms of school cricket, because as you rightly said, that's the way to go. What about women's cricket? Do we have some women's cricket being played in the primary school and high school also?
Girls cricket is played at both the primary school level and the secondary school level. However, it's only about 2 years now, because there was no cricket in 2020 and 2021. But before that, the Secondary Schools Cricket League had started a hardball girls cricket tournament. Previously, they only played the softball, but I know about 2 or 3 years ago, they played the hardball cricket. And you know, that is what is really necessary to push the girls cricket in any territory. The ladies cricket in Trinidad, there is a cricket association, a women's cricket association, and there is about 15 or 16 clubs across Trinidad and Tobago. And during the course of the cricket season, every Sunday, there is games being played across Trinidad where women's cricket is concerned. The Trinidad and Tobago Cricket Board, I could, to inform your viewers, the Trinidad and Tobago Cricket Board have constructed a separate ground now since earlier this year for women's cricket. We have decided that we are going to give the women's cricket that facility so that they can have, training and all that is necessary to upgrade women cricket and to push women cricket. There is a huge piece of land opposite where the National Cricket Center is. We have developed that. We have put a cricket pitch, 2 cricket pitches really on 2 grounds, and we have given that to the Women's Association.
Wow. Major announcement, man, here on Drive. Now, let's look at sports coming back in Trinidad and Tobago. You've not had cricket for 2 years, but at the same time, you've done a number of workshops. You've tried to keep your coaches busy, your umpires, you name it. What is going to happen in 2022? Because it looks as if a relaxation period is coming. Your Prime Minister is hinting that sports should resume in 2022. So this should be good news for you.
Yeah, very good news. And we welcome that news. We have already put dates and things in place for cricket to start. We are hoping that next weekend on the 13th, there may be a press conference by the Prime Minister, who usually on Saturdays, he will give an update with respect to COVID, and then he will announce different measures that the government would have want to implement or lift certain restrictions. So we are hoping that on November the 13th, some sort of announcement will be made in terms to allow sports, team sports, to be played in Trinidad and Tobago. So we have already put things in place. Mr. Springer, you will know that Trinidad and Tobago is the only territory in the Caribbean that have an under-23 tournament. Only this morning, we have put the dates to start our under-23 tournaments. If the restrictions is lifted, we want to start the tournament on December the 4th and to complete around the December the 12th or 14th. It is a team. The under-23 tournament is 4 teams. We picked 4 of the best under-23 players in the country, including Tobago, and where we put them and we played, they played against each other, and then the top 2 teams will go into a final. So it's really 7 matches. Now, why under-23? We felt that that is the missing link. From the under-19, some players, you don't see them anymore. They go missing. So we want to give those players an opportunity, there is to look forward to play in this tournament where the selectors of the national senior team will be at every game, so that the selectors will have a view of them and maybe can call some of the better performers from that under-23 into the national setup, so where they can train with the national senior team, with the Red Force players. So we have already also started to put dates in place. We have dates for our youth tournaments to start in February, because January with the under-19 World Cup will take place in the Caribbean, and Trinidad and Tobago is one of the host venues. So we have had dates for our entire cricket season, starting from February to June of next year. Those dates are already on black and white. There will be a retreat with the new executive that was elected last Saturday on this weekend, Saturday the 6th and Sunday the 7th of November. So we are going to get all those dates approved and to move cricket forward for 2021, well, of course, the latter part of 2021 and 2022.
Now, what format will you be playing for the under-23?
The under-23 is 50 overs, and also the age groups under 15, under 17, under 19 is 50 overs. The under-13, we play 45 overs under 13. And next year for the clubs in Trinidad and Tobago, what we decided, because this will be a transition year, 2022 will be a transition year, because for 2 years no cricket is played. With the conditions of the grounds across the country and pitches and so on have to be rehabilitated. They have to be, bring back to normalcy. So next year we will only be playing 50 overs cricket among the clubs in Trinidad and T20 cricket. The T20 cricket, as you know, it is a huge festival that is usually played. It used to be played at Guayakara Park, with the final being witnessed by 10,000 people, sometimes 8,000 people. This year, it will be held at the Brian Lara Cricket Stadium during the first 2 weeks of June.
All right. Now, out of all of this execution, you're then going to pick the best of the best, and then they will go to the Brian Lara Cricket Academy. Is that the mission?
But from the under-23 is the best, as I said before, it is the best players the best under-23 players in the country. What we will do, we will, after the 50 overs club tournament is finished, we are going to pick the best among the best and have 1 or 2 matches being played. Or we can do the same thing and have 4 teams pick of all the clubs, the 24 clubs that will play in our national league, our most senior tournaments, pick 4 teams and also play a tournament among the 4 teams. That will be 7 matches. Each team could end up playing 4 matches. So we have to provide a lot of cricket, and that will be in preparation for our Super 50 tournament next year, which will be held sometime in November. But we have to get the cricketers playing more cricket now. It will be difficult for the youngsters to come back out immediately and play. So we have to, transition them gradually back into the top gear of cricket. So we're hoping that as early as possible, as soon as the restrictions are lifted, and after the under-19 World Cup, that we are going to get them back out in the park.
When your body is challenged, it burns fuel and energy. Respond to every challenge with Altitude Sports Drink. It replenishes, restores, and prepares you for the next level. Altitude is uniquely formulated with an electrolyte blend and magnesia available in fruit punch, blue frost, and grape. Altitude. Raise your game.
Dem Sports is an innovative sports equipment manufacturer specialising in the production of high-quality sports nets and cages for clubs, universities and schools. The development of the Dem Sports concertina cage, either as a single or double-width sports net, has helped schools in inner-city areas where space is a premium to include sports such as cricket and tennis in the curriculum in a safe and enjoyable way.
The nets were developed really for when we had schools with a problem with space, so it could be used in limited areas. It folds back to the wall to a minimum of 515 millimetres and pulls out to 8 metres just over.
This sort of equipment is exactly the solution that many head teachers will look to use. It is space saving, it is easy to operate, it is relatively low cost, and again the impact of having provision within the school grounds is a real plus point.
Dem Sports are the world leaders in sports nets for schools. They have a range of net sizes to suit all spaces and can custom build whatever you require. For more information on how we can help you transform your play space at school safely, quickly and affordably, contact Dem Sports for details.
You're listening to On Drive, and our special guest today is the president of the Trinidad and Tobago Cricket Board, Mr. Azim Bassarath. And trending, we want to take some time out to power with Altitude, iMobile Vision Antigua Care, and Dem Sports Limited. Those are the ones who have been able to provide us and continue to make sure that we can be able to execute, along with our wonderful team, this special podcast on Drive. Brian Charles Lara. What is the mission and how best is the Trinidad and Tobago Cricket Board going to work with Brian, especially in his availability to help with the program and to help with the young cricketers? Because too many times, Mr. Bassarath, I find that we in lip service to our legends. And sometimes when I look around at the problems that we're having with the senior team, I'm saying that Sir Garfield Sobers and Brian Lara and Desmond Haynes don't need a coaching certificate. What I think we need to do is to be able to put them in a role, whether it's a mentorship role or an advisory role or whatever, especially to help with our young batsmen. What is going to be the role with Brian Charles Lara?
Well, I can safely tell you that Trinidad and Tobago Cricket Board have a cricket academy program where we would have during the month of in the past, that is, during the month of September to December, we usually have our cricket academy. Our sponsor for that is B Mobile, and B Mobile have Brian Lara under a contract. They had indicated to us, I know 1 year or 2 years down the road, prior to now, that Brian would have interacted with our cricket academy, and also there was a mentorship program sponsored by B Mobile for a few years, and he was also involved in that. Once or twice, we had Brian addressing our national senior team, and I think he did create an impact, but it also depends, Mr. Springer, on his availability. You will know he's very much involved in other activities across the world, and he spent very little time in Trinidad, but whenever he's here, I can safely say in moving forward that, we have to use, and I am agreeing with you, we must use the legends of West Indies cricket in different capacities, in mentorship program, in going around the Caribbean, speaking to our young cricketers. Not only in Trinidad should we ask Brian Lara to speak to the cricketers, but we should ask him to go and take him to Guyana, to Barbados, to Antigua, all across the Caribbean. And I even, after this T20 World Cup is completed, Mr. Springer, it is my intention to ask Cricket West Indies that in what role can we use Dwayne Bravo? You will recall that in the Super 50 tournament played earlier this year, Bravo was used as a mentor for Cricket West Indies. You will have noticed what Bravo did during the course of CPL in St. Kitts. Mr. Dwayne Bravo would have gone and speaking to other players on different teams. And that is what is needed in West Indies cricket. Bravo would have spoken to the Niam young guy from Barbados. Look what he said. You would have read in the newspaper what Dominic Drakes had said, what Bravo told him, that he's not no ordinary player. And he's going to use him in the St. Kitts Patriots team as one of the important players on the team. I think Mr. Drakes played nearly every game in the tournament, and he did extremely well. So that is what is needed with our international stars. That is what is needed with our heroes. And I think that Bravo is one of them too, and who can make a tremendous contribution in inspiring and motivating the younger cricketers. And I'm agreeing again that, some of the legends must come back in some capacity. I'm not saying that they should be coach or manager or whatever, but they have to be engaged first in their territory where it comes from, and then, look to see West Indies cricket take it, at that level too.
Cricket West Indies, or West Indies cricket, is at the crossroads. Every day you hear folks talking about the test team, you hear folks talking about the T20 team, you hear folks talking about whatever, women's cricket. But in small societies with so many countries all around, you will always have challenges. And sometimes I get the impression, Azim, that our administrators don't want to be challenged, don't want to be criticized for whatever reason, because I'm an administrator also. So outside of me being a journalist, I'm an administrator. So I understand the business on the functioning of sports. Too many times, sometimes people don't really understand that. And that's why we tend to run into a brick wall sometimes. As you look to advance the game forward in the Caribbean, in a short nutshell, what do we have to do over the next 10-year cycle? Because we have to take this in a cycle. This young generation gap, we have to now begin to build for the next 10, 15 years, another group of young players. But what needs to happen? And outside of that, we're going to be challenged by all the money that is involved in all the T20 cricket around the world. And so a youngster is going to be enticed where he can get an opportunity to go and play in a 10-10 tournament or a T20 tournament. And as much as we're trying to see if we can go up the ladder in Test cricket, we might not have our best cricketers. How do we balance that act?
Well, first of all, to be an administrator, you must expect criticisms. The critics also must know that administrators are human beings and administrators will make mistakes. So they have to accept that. It goes both ways. And mistakes are going to happen, are going to take place, and you are going to be criticized. Definitely those two things are going to happen. For the next 10 years, as you say, I will say for the next 5 years, first of all, the economy in the Caribbean does not give us the amount of money that is needed to pump into the sport, into cricket, as India, England, or Australia will have. Governments across the Caribbean must contribute, they must put something in specifically for cricket. Cricket, the sport of cricket is different from all the other sports in the Caribbean because cricket is the only sport in the Caribbean that unites the people. And when West Indies do well, the entire Caribbean is joyful. People are happy. You see a different mood in the people of the Caribbean when West Indies do well. And the governments must come in and assist the territorial boards. More development work must take place, just as in Trinidad, how we feel that the 4 teams under 23 and the 4 teams under 19 and under 16, that is what transpired and that is what took place in India. If you do a research of India cricket, that is what was taking place a few years now. And that is why India have continued to produce top-class cricketers for a long time. If we follow what India did, and if it worked in India, it could work here too. So the West Indies Cricket Board, together with the governments across the Caribbean, and of course the different territorial boards, we must pay a lot of emphasis and have our better players playing against the better players. If you have in Antigua, you select 2 teams under 19 teams or under 16 teams in Antigua, the best set of players, only one thing can happen there, is that their standard of play will increase. So you must get that playing across the Caribbean. You must get, if you start now at under 16, the best under 16 players playing against each other, and you have them playing consistently, we are going to see in 5 years' time, in 6 years' time, we are going to see players of a very high caliber coming through. And that is why we have started that in Trinidad and Tobago. And had it not been for the pandemic, within a year or 2, you would have seen a lot of young, talented cricketers coming through. You will know that because of what transpired at the zonal level and the games that we played earlier this year, that Trinidad and Tobago was able to have 16 of our under 19 players in the Rising Star camp that was hosted by Cricket West Indies in Antigua. So if we do that across the Caribbean, Mr. Springer, having the best players playing against the best players, in less than 10 years, you are going to see superstars coming out of those games and those territories. But we must get the assistance. We must get the assistance of governments to contribute to the development of the game.
And while we salute the governments in trying to support sports in the Caribbean, you know, as you rightly said, we got a pandemic, so there has to be a mix and a balance. We also hope now that the CPL franchises, and you have a franchise in Trinidad and Tobago, I hope the dialogue will now open based on what you have just outlined to me now, so that you have more support from the franchise in Trinidad and Tobago, the TKR Night Riders, to be able to support your program. Is there any improvement going forward in that aspect?
Well, it is something that the Trinidad and Tobago Cricket Board have intention to do, is to approach TKR for a relationship. They haven't reached out to us as yet. It is my understanding that they want to do some development work in Trinidad. So I'm hoping that they are going to do it through the Trinidad and Tobago Cricket Board and no other entity. So that, and the different franchises across the Caribbean should do that, because in the end, it's really the franchises across the Caribbean that will benefit, especially from the players who will be playing the shorter form of the game. It is very interesting to know that in India, you know, these franchises do work in across the states, and if they do likewise in the Caribbean here, you are going to get, you know, players coming through and players fast track onto the West Indies team. What we have seen and noticed also in India is that the T20 cricket have helped produce players for Test cricket. What is important too is that we must get our cricketers playing all formats of the game. That is a problem we have not only in Trinidad, but across the Caribbean, where certain players only want to play a certain format of the game. We must encourage our players to play all formats of the game. The T20 cricket helped a lot of the Test cricketers. When you look at David Warner, when you look at Rohit Sharma, all of them will have benefited from playing T20 cricket, will help them in the longer format of the game.
Cricket is life, and one has to begin to start respecting the game, because it has a way of, when it respects you, so you sometimes maybe don't like it, and then you wonder in terms of what's happening. You have a son umpiring as we look to close out here on Drive. how your son got involved in umpiring.
Well, to be honest, when he was about 24, 25, he used to play cricket also. He used to play cricket for the community, the village club. And when he was about 24, 25, I told him, I said, boy, you cannot play cricket for Trinidad again. Go and join the umpiring fraternity. Because I myself, I came from the umpiring fraternity. I'm also a fully qualified umpire. So he went to his first class, and when he went to his first session, he said it was so very interesting that he couldn't wait to go back to the next training session. And from there, he continued going every week for the 2 hours of training, and he started umpiring at the zonal level, then at the secondary school level. And I must admit that I didn't see him umpiring until late. I was abused by one of my former colleagues on the cricket board, Mr. Lalman Kaulesa. Mr. Lalman Kaulesa, with Presentation College Shogunas, went down to Moruga to play the Moruga Composite School, and my son ended up umpiring the game. So 2 days later, I met Mr. Kaulesa in a meeting at the cricket board office. So Mr. Kaulesa asked me, that Bassarath boy who umpired the game in Moruga, is that your son? I said, yes. He said, did you ever see him umpire? I said, no. He said, well, let me tell you something. Find your tail and go and look at him. Eh? He's a very good umpire. So Mr. Kaulesa at that time also was the president of the Trinidad and Tobago Umpires Council. My son never looked back. He was pushed to do some of the bigger games at a very young age. At the age of, I think, about 28, 29, he was doing the highest level of cricket in Trinidad umpiring. And then he did the regional age group tournaments. There were some people from Cricket West Indies who was here at the time, Clyde Butts and Courtney Brown, and others who would have given him good marks in his umpiring ability. And that is where he ended up now as on the senior panel of Cricket West Indies. But he take his game very seriously, and he enjoy what he do.
Is indeed a specialty area that we certainly have to address, umpiring. I mean, in fact, all facets, we need some match referees. We have Sir Richie Richardson, Ryan King and company, but, we need to get some more folks out there to be able to make sure that we can fly the flag of West Indies, because it's not everybody's going to play test cricket. And I think we need to be able to begin, we have to see cricket as an industry in the Caribbean, just as you're rightly saying. If we're going to get support from the governments of the CPL franchises, we need to begin to start to export players out. As you rightly said, whether it is T20, we need to start to export umpires out. We need to start to export video analysts out. Even our coaches need to begin to start to invest in themselves rather than waiting on Cricket West Indies or waiting on Trinidad and Tobago Cricket Board. But there are so many other opportunities around. Advance yourself so that when the opportunities come closer to home, that you're almost ready. Mr. President, it is indeed a real pleasure to speak to you, and I could speak to you all morning, but I know you got a number of things that you have to do. I just want to wish you all the best as you go through your tenure. This platform is provided for you. So this is just only part one of our conversation, because we haven't even touched the surface about speaking about Mr. Azim Bassarath, who himself is a politician, as I would say, in his own right. But we're not talking the general politics today, and we're not talking cricket politics today. Your final words as we close out here on Drive, on this special program. You've been one of our special guests. And for me, I want to thank you very much, because you've been somebody who've always continued to push me in the broadcasting and the communication, and even being an administrator of West Indies cricket. Your final words on Drive.
Well, first of all, Mr. Springer, it was a pleasure chatting with you this morning. And I recall I was speaking to somebody this morning that, when I became president in 2009, you was one of the first overseas journalists to call and speak to me continuously. And, I always enjoy speaking to you. We have maintained a very, very cordial relationship, a friendship that goes way back, as I said, 12, 13 years ago. And I consider you to be a friend, and I will do anything, make myself available at any time to your availability to chat with you. whether it is on radio or whether on the podcast. So, you know, all I want to say also is that, you know, all of us, Cricket West Indies or any territorial board cannot do it alone. We need everybody to come on board, to join us, to support us, to make their contribution in whatever way. And as you rightly say, even though if you can't play the game, there are other avenues and other areas where you can make a contribution, where you can make a living. There are a number of opportunities now that is available to people who can make a living of cricket, and a very good living too. Umpiring, physiotherapists, analysts, all sorts of things. And I think it is open now to the people of the Caribbean to grab that with both hands. And whatever that Cricket West Indies and the Trinidad and Tobago Cricket Board can do, you know, we will be able to do that and to push our people to highlight the Caribbean across the world.
When your body is challenged, it burns fuel and energy. Respond to every challenge with Altitude Sports Drink. It replenishes, restores, and prepares you for the next level. Altitude is uniquely formulated with an electrolyte blend and magnesium available in fruit punch, blue frost, and grape. Altitude. Raise your game.
Dem Sports is an innovative sports equipment manufacturer specialising in the production of high-quality sports nets and cages for clubs, universities and schools. The development of a Dem Sports concertina cage, either as a single or double-width sports net, has helped schools in inner-city areas where space is a premium to include sports such as cricket and tennis in the curriculum in a safe and enjoyable way.
The nets were developed really for when we had schools with a problem space, so it could be used in limited areas. It folds back to the wall to a minimum of 515 millimetres and pulls out to 8 metres just over.
This sort of equipment is exactly the solution that many head teachers will look to use. It is space saving, it is easy to operate, it is relatively low cost, and again the impact of having provision within the school grounds is a real plus point.
Dem Sports are the world leaders in sports nets for schools. They have a range of net sizes to suit all spaces and can custom build whatever you require. For more information on how we can help you transform your play space at school safely, quickly and affordably, contact Dem Sports for details.
Well, the Caribbean Sports Entertainment Management Group, CSEMG, would once again like to salute your entire executive and the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago for their huge support to world sport. And I know looking ahead, we're going to have a new world sport order going forward. But our group, our organization, through OnDrive, through the value of sports and also football and insight, we want to be able to make sure that we can be able to identify and get the stories of our administrators out there. The journalists in the Caribbean have gone lazy, and too many times, you know, we worry so much about the negativity that we don't worry about the positives. And we see you as one of the positives of West Indies cricket. We want to thank you very much. We also want to take some time out to salute our sponsors who have made this possible. Altitude, local agents, Andrew Wholesale in Antigua and Barbuda. Altitude is a hydrated drink which is made in Trinidad and Tobago. We also have iMobile Vision Care, and we are Dem Sports Limited. OnDrive, as you know, brings to you consistency, information, stability, respect, and most of all, a true passion to highlight the untold stories of our special guest that we had this morning in Mr. Azim Bassarath. And one thing that we want to make sure that we leave with folks is life is too short to hide your feelings. Don't be afraid to say what you feel. When you open yourself to growth, there are so many teachers. OnDrive is one of the teachers. And our special guest today was Mr. Azim Bassarath, who's going into his 5th term. And we want to make sure that we can be able to make sure that we push him to the next level so that he can take Trinidad and Tobago and West Indies cricket to another level. Thank you very much, and God bless you.
It was my pleasure. God bless you too, my brother.
Thank you.